Welcome to the Grow Your Practice podcast. Hi, I'm your host, Chad Madden, owner of Madden Physical Therapy and Breakthrough. Join me each week as we dive into the best practices, systems, principles, tips, and tricks to help you grow your private practice. Hey everybody, Chad Madden here with Breakthrough, and today I want to cover a very important Jim Collins concept with you. And the most common question that I'm hearing from owners around growth is this: what should I expect to grow as we're coming out of the pandemic here in 2021? And most owners, the most common answer, most frequent answer that I'm hearing is 5 to 10%. And if you're familiar with Jim Collins' work, Good to Great, or Built to Last, or any of the other books that he has published, and you realize the history there, Jim Collins and his group, they're observational business analysts. So they'll take a look at people that perform, businesses that perform far above their peers, and essentially lead the field in their respective industries. So one of the key characteristics that he has in there is, consistent 20% growth year over year or higher, and relative to the industry average. And if we apply that to physical therapy, we know that the industry average is about 6.2%, at least pre-pandemic. And if we want to grow more than that, it's that same 20-mile march concept from good to great. We should be expecting to grow or aim to grow 20% per year. And again, this is for the owner that is thinking about, leaving a legacy, creating an impact in their area. They want to, help change the delivery of medical and healthcare within their community, help more people in pain get back to normal naturally. It doesn't necessarily have to be financially driven, although many times that's, something in the background is I want to create a practice of value as recognized in the marketplace as well. Anyhow, want to take the key concepts that Jim Collins has in that book and focus very specifically on one of those concepts, and that is the Hedgehog Concept. So I'm going to be sharing my screen here. If you are listening, I apologize in advance. Ooh, there we go. So if you're familiar with Good to Great, again, Jim Collins' work, he has this idea of the flywheel, right? And there are essentially, the book is broken down into 6 observations that they have made from companies that outperform others. The first is level 5 leadership, which essentially talks about you and your abilities as a leader. The next one is first who, then what. That's the importance of you attracting the right people. We've all attracted the right people, and I'm sure many of us have attracted the wrong one as well. And just think about how that stifles the growth, the impact, the business that you're building, right? So Jim Collins and his group do a nice job with that. Then they go over into disciplined thought, which is confront the brutal facts, and also this idea of the hedgehog concept. And this is what I want to focus on in particular within this session, because this is, I see some pitfalls here that owners get caught up on in applying this. So the hedgehog concepts, it looks something like this. And there are 3 circles basically that overlap in the center, and that center is where we have this hedgehog concept. So the first thing that we can talk about is, or at least that Jim Collins asks, is, what are you deeply passionate about? So the way that I think about this as a PT is lay out all the different ways that you could possibly deliver physical therapy services. Maybe it's over a Zoom call or telehealth. Maybe it's in one-to-many situation where you're setting up a subscription or something like that. Maybe you very much like to write, or maybe you're a traditional PT and you have an affinity or a liking to working in a certain type of setting. Maybe you like peds or acute care or outpatient PT. The next thing that I would think about there is, what diagnosis do you really like working with? So if you wrote down a list of your 10 favorite patients of all time to work with, obviously you're going to keep this confidential, but you're going to look at that list and, was there something common about them? Maybe it was the demographic of the patient, maybe it was the diagnosis, maybe you just absolutely love working with shoulder and rotator cuff, or women's health and post-mastectomy lymphedema, or urinary incontinence, or gait training, or balance and dizziness and vestibular disorders. Whatever that may be, you should identify that for yourself, and if you're an owner, your group. So that's that first circle. The second circle, and in the lower left-hand corner, if you can see this, is what you can be best at in the world. Be the best in the world at. So the key thing is here, and if you go back to the Good to Great book and you read about this, it's what you can be the best in the world at. So it's may not be today. Maybe you're not the number one expert in the world today for rotator cuff and shoulder problems, but it's something that you could be the best at, right? So, and you're probably going to want to set something up long term. Obviously, if you're a new grad, or you're only a few years out of school, it would be very difficult to say, today I've done this lifetime of research 3 years into my career, and therefore I'm the best at it right now. And Jim Collins gives you an out. He essentially says, well, it's not today, but this is something that you realistically could be the best in the world at. So, for us, the way that we looked at this at Madden PT is we changed it to our area, because even though we have done some pretty cool things with SI joint, and have had people fly in from all over the country here to Harrisburg, which is really, really cool. And it's basically cocktail chatter more than anything else. The real question that we asked ourselves in terms of business planning was, what can we be the best in our area at? And for us, when I first opened up and was 2 or 3 years in, that was back pain. Now, there are some reasons that we decided on back pain, and I'll share that with you here in a little bit. But you want to go through that yourself. For example, if your area, if your practice, you're working in a practice and you're seeing a ton of rotator cuff patients, and you don't really want to study that, you find yourself studying more spine care and reading spine research, then that would be something that you're not deeply passionate about, rotator cuff, and you're not going to be best in the world at it because you're not really studying that, right? So just think through those concepts as you're building your business. And again, we just narrow it to central Pennsylvania. We just want to be the best in our area, or the best known in our area for very specific diagnoses. And the third circle that is in here is what drives your economic engine. So, and this is a key one because it's easy to falter here. And this is probably the area that I see therapists failing at when they're doing their business planning. So if, for example, at one point we had a women's health program here in my private practice. We were doing urinary incontinence and also post-mastectomy lymphedema, saw some scleroderma patients in there as well. And we had an excellent physical therapist, and she retired, right? So we were trying to find a replacement. And during the looking for the replacement, I happened to take a look at the economics of the program, because I found that we were investing a lot of time and thought about how we're going to keep this program rolling. And for us, the average urinary incontinence patient was coming in for 4 visits. Sometimes they had an underlying pelvic or a lumbopelvic issue that we would address in PT, and that may be another 8 visits on average. But for the most part, the average number of visits was 4 to 5. So very low, our lowest income per plan of care. The next thing that we looked at within the program is, what's our capacity to expand this? The attendance rate wasn't the best. It wasn't really something that we could build our business around. And if I was honest, trying to keep it going was a bit of a distraction from what really was our main thing, which was outpatient orthopedic care, specifically lumbopelvic issues, and also shoulder, right? Rotator cuff and shoulder problems. So they were our two wheelhouse that we were deeply passionate about. Our therapist were deeply the most passionate about. We could possibly be the best in the world at that. Our therapist on staff had either been published or they were teaching on a national level other physical therapists how to treat those problems. We had an excellent reputation within the community for getting positive outcomes for those diagnoses, and they drove our economic engine. We could see them and still keep our doors open. So that became our focal point. And if we want to continue down the path of the three things that get in the way for physical therapists applying this, number one would be what I just mentioned there, the ignoring the economics. You know, if you're only seeing uh, balance and dizziness, vestibular BPP V patients, VOR patients, vestibular ocular reflex deficit patients for an average of 6 visits, and you know it's not possible for you to build a business around that. I would not transition my whole business around that's not my hedgehog concept. That's not one that we can build our business around. And really, hopefully by this point, I've talked enough about the book that you go by and the book and you read that chapter around the hedgehog concept. But it's in the book, very quickly, Jim Collins goes through, you know, there's the hedgehog and the fox. And the fox can do a lot of different things. It's very witty and well diversified in its skill set, but it's not the best in the world at any one thing. The hedgehog can do one thing really, really well, and it's defend itself. And it does that by, I believe, rolling up in a ball. And I think that was the concept from the book. But it focuses on one thing that it does really, really, really well, right? And that's essentially what you want to be. Not a fox, not a master of all. You want to be the best in your area at one thing. So first big mistake is ignoring the economics. You know, we talked about that for applying that with, in my case, women's health or balance and dizziness, vestibular issues. The second big mistake that I see is too many specialties. So vague. I'm going to be the best in the world at everything. And frequently what will happen here, this is usually somebody earlier on their private practice journey. What they do is they don't really think through the benefits of focusing on one area. So what are those benefits? Well, I alluded to earlier, I'm going to tell you the story about back pain and how we came to specialize in that. And here it is. So when I first opened up, Pennsylvania did not have direct access yet. We were 100% reliant on physician referrals. And in going around and talking with 300 plus doctors, the thing that came back that they referred to PT the most for, more than 50% of the time, was back pain, right? So why would I try to change that? And then when I talked with other therapists in our area or my colleagues, what do you least like to treat? Number one was back pain. That to me just screamed opportunity. And I liked it. I had an interest there. A back injury is what got me involved in physical therapy back when I was 17 years old and sparked an interest there. I liked it, and started while I was College Misericordia, now Misericordia University, going through the program there, and took advanced spine studies, and just had an interest there. And so as I went along, and I heard more and more therapists, did not particularly enjoy the enigma of solving the enigma of back pain. That really sparked my interest, and I just recognized that was something that I could develop over time. So as we've gone along, however, especially with our therapist, we've attracted other therapists that have various specialties in outpatient orthopedics. So not just back pain, although I would say all of our therapists are trained in the same systems and concepts that I came up in, and they've taken it much farther in their practicing careers than what I ever did. And then, we branched out into other areas as well. Rotator cuff and shoulder problems are very easy to go to the general public with. It's because there's not a lot of competition there. It's kind of that blue ocean strategy concept, right? Where, back pain, there's a lot of competition in our area. Nobody's advertising that they specialize in rotator cuff and shoulder problems. Same thing with knee. So we branched out as we went along, but we started with one pin. The main pin to knock down for us was focus on a specialty. We did that for 10 years before we branched out and said that we were doing anything else. So we focused on that for a long time. We got known for that, and then we started adding advertising for other programs. So problem number 2 is too many specialties. Problem number 3 is no grit with a decision. So kind of falls into, too many specialties, just every month changing what you're the best in your area at. There's some grit involved here, and grit means perseverance, your ability to stick to it. And it's very easy, and I see owners doing this too often, where they'll chase the shiny object, right? Somebody in their area or a friend that they know is getting really good results with a golf performance program, so they jump over that. And by the way, we have a former therapist who worked with us here for 8.5 years, Andrew Dulac. He went off and he is doing 100% golf performance right now and loves it. He is the best in his area at it. Really, really knows everything in there well. Andrew has his own Hedgehog here and is doing well because of that. So I'm not, please, as I'm going through here and giving examples of diagnoses, I'm not saying anyone is wrong. But when you start rolling this out and you go down the path of I want to be the best in my area at golf performance, and then 2 months later we're having another conversation. Now you want to be the best in the world at foot pain and orthotics, and then 2 months after that now it's cervicogenic headaches, and then 2 months after that it's ACL prevention. That's a bit much. And again, what owners will see is they'll chase that shiny object because they hear somebody else is doing really well with it, and that has to stop. At least has to stop for you to be the best in the world at. You're going to have to focus in an area, especially to create some marketing, effective marketing. You're going to have to focus on one thing just to get rolling. You can always branch out and add in the future, but what is the primary thing that you want to attract people into your clinic for? And you really have to decide that, because just simply repeating the same message and offering value is very powerful. And here's the idea. Let's say over the next year, you and I have an agreement. We're going to commit to creating 100 videos of delivering tremendous content around 100 simple to do exercises for a specific problem. And let's say we choose to do rotator cuff and shoulder naturally. So we start down that path, and 7 videos in, we say, hey, you know what? This is getting kind of stale, not really taking off like we wanted. What we're going to do is we're going to switch over to knee pain. And then we do that for a few times, and then we switch over to hip pain, and then we switch over to another problem, and we just keep going. And we never really focus all that power in one area. Or what happens if we stuck it through, right? What happens if we delivered 100 simple exercise videos all about answering problems that people have with their shoulder? So we would do simple exercise for shoulder pain while you're sleeping, simple exercise for shoulder pain when you're reaching overhead, simple exercise for shoulder pain when you're reaching behind your back. And we just went on and on, focused on shoulder pain. Now, if you were doing research and you had shoulder pain in my area, and you found that I had 100 that we had created 100 videos that were out there, which one do you think you would be more proactive to? The therapist that was well diversified and touched on all bases and 87 different orthopedic problems, or the one that did nothing but talked about rotator cuff and shoulder problems for the past year? I know which one I would go to, right? If it's you or your kids, you'd like to see a specialist. It doesn't mean you can't see back pain. It doesn't mean you can't help, treat somebody with a lymphedema issue or another problem. It just means that you've identified what your specialty is and you are maximizing that and focused on that in your marketing. Again, what will happen occasionally is somebody will take a look at us. Right now we're as I'm recording this, we're right around 1,400 visits a week. We have 6 locations, about 20 DPTs, and somebody will say, "Yeah, but you advertise back pain and rotator cuff and knee problems and arthritis on a rotation." Well, we didn't start like that, right? We started with this Jim Collins concept long ago, focused on one thing, beginning back in 2003, 2004, and then expanded from there. That's what I believe you should do as well. And then once you become known really well for doing one thing, if you want to add something else and it doesn't distract and it answers those other questions, you and your group are deeply passionate about it, and it drives your economic engine, then fantastic, feel free to add it in. But right now, if you haven't done this already and you're scattered and your marketing message is scattered for too many different things, it's time to focus on one.